Do you remember the taste of your childhood? Personally, I recall how my grandmother used to make me sweet waffle tubes. I remember the festive herring under a fur coat and the most delicious homemade compotes. In this video, I will tell you the recipes for the most popular and delicious Soviet dishes. Bon appétit! I think the most popular dish in the USSR and the post-Soviet space should open our list. And of course it's the Olivier Salad. This dish became a real symbol of the Soviet Union. No holiday, feast or even morning could go without this salad. It consists of the simplest products that can be found on store shelves. You'll need potatoes, chicken eggs, boiled peas, canned work stew, carrots, onions and pickled cucumbers. Also, a meat product is part of the salad. Here it depends on your taste. Some prefer Olivier with boiled meat, others with bologna. Apples are often added to this dish, but not everyone likes them. The origin of Olivier is not known for certain. There are only guesses related on who and when invented it. According to one theory, the salad was invented by Lucien Olivier, the manager of the Hermitage restaurant. According to other information, his name was Nikolai. What exactly was in his recipe is also unknown. But one thing is clear, the Olivier salad as we know it now is fundamentally different from what was served in the 19th century. Legend has it that originally the ingredients were not even mixed. The dish was served as a meat assortment with sauce. Eating it was inconvenient, so the restaurant's chef ordered all the ingredients to be finely chopped to make a sort of salad. Its recipe has changed repeatedly over time. Nowadays, Olivier has become much simpler. The reason is that there were huge problems with food in stores in the USSR. The diverse meat was replaced by chicken, and after the appearance of bologna, it was also used. The second extremely popular dish in the USSR was Navy-style pasta. It's a very tasty and extremely easy-to-cook dish that was prepared almost every day. The fact is that it can be cooked in just 30 minutes. The world first learned about Navy-style pasta in 1952 at a culinary contest held in Italy. Soviet chefs never participated in this contest because Stalin forbade traveling abroad, especially to Western countries, fearing that promising specialists might not return. But still, he allowed the ambassador in Italy at that time to prepare this dish. And guess what? It immediately won. The dish that won the hearts of Italians was invented by Boruch Solomonovich Katzelenbogin, a Yalta culinary school teacher. The original recipe included pasta, necessarily corrugated so that the meat easily stuck to it, ground beef, onions and butter. And that's essentially all the ingredients. Such a simple dish can be prepared in a very short time. This is what captivated the Italian critics. I couldn't exclude from our list the most popular drink in the USSR. In those times, there was no Coca-Cola, Pepsi or other drinks very familiar to us now. There were unique carbonated drinks and soda, but they were almost never made at home. The classic drink prepared every day in Soviet families was fruit compote. It was made from any berries such as red and black currants, gooseberries and even raspberries. But the most popular was compote made from dried fruits and apples, as these ingredients were in every home. The history of this dish is very simple. The recipe arrived in Russia in the 18th century from France. Originally, compote was not considered a drink but a dessert. This was written in a cookbook from 1861. Then fruits and berries were poured with hot syrup and cooled. It was only in the USSR that the familiar liquid form of this dish appeared. To prepare the good old Soviet compote, you just need to take berries or fruits, pour water over them and add sugar to taste. Then everything is boiled for an hour, and after that, the finished compote is poured into jars and it is tightly closed. In a cool place, it can be stored for years. This drink was consumed literally all the time. It was drunk for breakfast, lunch and dinner. The thing is that it's very healthy and rich in vitamins. Also, compote is very tasty, which children really like. It's best served chilled. Just imagine, a hot summer day, you've been playing outside all day with friends, and when you return home, your favorite refreshing drink was waiting for you. Just wonderful. The next recipe is still used in the countries of the former USSR, especially during the New Year holiday. Herring under a fur coat is a true heritage of the past, and I strongly recommend remembering this wonderful taste of childhood. The history of herring under a fur coat goes far from our country to the northern Scandinavian lands, which have always been famous for an abundance of delicious fish. Similar recipes could be found in Norwegian cookbooks from 1851. The story of how this dish appeared in the USSR is well told by the following legend. Merchant Anastas Bogomilov, the owner of a network of canteens and taverns, decided to invent a snack that would symbolize national unity during the revolutionary years. The famous herring under a fur coat was first served on the eve of the new year 1919. The dish consisted of different layers, between which was mayonnaise. It included herring, potatoes, beets, carrots, eggs and onions. There was even a legend that the acronym SHUBA meant down with chauvinism and decay, boycott and anathema. In general, in the USSR, people took various preservations very seriously. This was because there was often a shortage of goods in the country. Because of this, the same beef could sometimes just not be found on the shelves, and everyone solved this problem by making their own homemade canned food. The most popular meat canned food in the USSR is rightfully considered to be stew. It was prepared in almost every family, but the history of its origin is not so closely related to the Soviet Union. The first idea of inventing this dish came to Napoleon during his military campaigns. He clearly understood that soldiers needed fresh and, most importantly, nutritious food. Therefore, he announced a competition to create such a dish, and the winner was to take 12,000 francs. François Appert won it. He packed meat in cans and then boiled it for a long time. In the can there was a special hole, which was then tightly closed. The now familiar tin cans were invented in England a little later. In the Russian Empire, the dish appeared during the Crimean War. Stew gained huge popularity among the population. The thing is how long it can be stored. Meat cooked by this method can be stored in the cold for several years. And its recipe is very simple. You'll need meat, carrots, bay leaf, pepper and salt. The meat needs to be boiled for a long time in water, adding salt, pepper and bay leaf. Then it should be transferred to jars to which carrots are added. It's better to remove the pepper and bay leaf. And that's it, our dish is ready. It's best added to pasta and potatoes. The meat turns out to be very rich and tasty, and most importantly, pleasantly soft. In addition, it can be added to various soups. It can be stored for a very long time. In a cool cellar, such canned food can be kept for years. Another very popular dish for which I have prepared a recipe especially for you is chicken Kiev. There are two versions of the origin of this type of cutlet. According to the first, they were invented in 1912 in St. Petersburg. According to the second, they were preceded by the devil ale cutlets. This French dish differed from its Soviet counterpart only in the filling. The devil ale included a filling of cheese sauce or mushroom sauce with truffles, but the most surprising filling for all was beef brains. However, naturally, in the revolutionary times of the USSR, the dish was significantly simplified due to the same product deficit and money problems. Soviet chicken Kiev included a filling of butter with herbs, and the recipe was much simpler. A cutlet was made from chicken breast, in the center of which butter and herbs were placed. Then they were rolled into peculiar pastries dipped in egg and breadcrumbs. To fully cook the dish, it just needed to be fried in a pan until golden brown, and then placed in the oven for 15 to 20 minutes. Another dish from the USSR that I simply adore is the vinaigrette salad. In pre-revolutionary Russia, vinaigrette was made from meat with the addition of eggs and pickles. In the USSR, the recipe was greatly simplified. The history of this dish begins in the 18th century. At that time, it was very similar to the modern herring under a fur coat. It included, as you might guess, fish, beets, potatoes and mashed apple. It was prepared only at the royal court. However, not all rulers liked it. For example, Catherine the Great rejected it. The recipe began to change, and meat and other products started to be included. It was in the Russian Empire that onion, sauerkraut, pickled cucumbers and cranberries began to be added to the salad. When the recipe gained popularity not only at the royal court but also on the streets of cities, it became much simpler. No longer were meat and fish included. In fact, this dish is very healthy because it contains a large number of vitamins and fiber. In the USSR, it was served almost every day with lunch. Well, it's time for dessert. Personally, I just adore the old recipe for wafer tubes with boiled condensed milk. In the USSR, probably every family made this treat, and the children just loved it. I still remember how I tried to prepare this dish myself and how I then had to clean the kitchen, so don't make my mistakes and follow the recipe I prepared especially for you. The history of wafer tubes with condensed milk dates back to the 13th–14th centuries. Then poor people baked waffles from leftover dough and flavored them with syrup. Sometime later, waffles were a delicacy only for rich people. Only in the 19th–20th centuries, When the products used for preparation became widely available, they began to be cooked in almost every family. And in 1904, a chef learned how to twist waffle sheets into tubes and cones. That's when tubes with boiled condensed milk appeared. In general, any sweets can be used as a filling. For the waffles, you'll need a good dough based on eggs, butter, flour and sugar. The main thing is to knead it to a uniform consistency. Nowadays, you can buy already boiled condensed milk. I strongly advise you to do this, as boiling it yourself is a dangerous affair. Once one such can exploded during cooking, covering the entire kitchen with sweet filling. It's best to serve them already chilled. Then the condensed milk will not leak out of the waffle and dirty everything around. They can be decorated with ice cream or delicious jam. I couldn't help but mention this masterpiece of culinary art. Chocolate salami is the pinnacle of confectionery craftsmanship. Whoever invented it is a true genius. In the USSR, it was prepared for almost all holidays. Personally, I just loved it. If you've never heard of this sausage, then you've missed a lot. Its history dates back to the 19th century. Initially, the idea to make such a dish came from a French chef. He wanted to make a dessert that could be stored for a long time. The first recipes for the sausage were very simple. Mostly it was a mixture of crushed cookies and chocolate wrapped in foil. And no, there was no meat in it. In the modern world, the recipe has remained almost unchanged, but many add nuts, raisins and even coffee to the sausage. The ingredients in the classic recipe are cookies, milk, cocoa, sugar and butter. The cookies need to be crushed. Heat the milk over medium heat, add sugar, cocoa and butter. Then pour all this chocolate mass into the cookies. The resulting mass needs to be laid out on food wrap, rolled into a sausage and put in the refrigerator for 2 to 3 hours. And our sausage is ready. I couldn't help but mention the soups that were popular in the USSR. The classic Rassolnik was a real cult dish eaten by both children and adults. The history of the soup dates back to the 18th century. However, before it there was a predecessor, Kalia soup from chicken, fish and sturgeon roe. Initially, Rassolnik was a meat pie with a filling of pickled cucumbers, and only after the 18th century did the soup appear under this name. It includes meat broth, pieces of meat, cereal, potatoes, onions, carrots, and of course pickled cucumber. It's simple to cook and the products used in it are easy to get. Probably that's why in the post-war years in the USSR it was very popular. To prepare it, you just need to make a rich meat broth, add cereal to it, usually barley, and then all the other ingredients. The whole mass needs to be boiled for 30 minutes. It turns out to be a rich and most importantly hearty soup. Maybe children didn't particularly like it, but adults loved it. It's best served with a lot of greens and sour cream. And the last dish that was always prepared in the Soviet Union and which we have already used in our dishes, pickles. These are just ordinary preserved salted vegetables. Personally, I just adore rolled good salty cucumbers. In general, the word pickles implies not only salted vegetables but also pickled products. In Rus, there was a strict observance of fasts throughout the year, so it was necessary to prepare many vegetable preserves. The first recipes for salting cucumbers originated in the 12th century, when they were the most popular of all preserves. Salted mushrooms, sauerkraut with various additives, carrots, beets, apples and cranberries were also popular. When making such products, vinegar was not used and all preserves were made in oak barrels, which were necessarily stored in a cold place. And in the modern world, the recipe has not changed much. Pickles can be used in cooking dishes as well as served in their pure form. For example, I really like to enjoy tasty salty cucumbers during feasts. These were the most popular recipes in Soviet cuisine. Thank you for watching.